But this is our year. I know you need to say the opposite, so let's go ahead and hear it, that McGinnis would still have a shot after.
I think he absolutely would, because I think, John, in this election, it's going to be about issues and policy. I think that voters...
When has an election ever been about issues and policy?
You know,
Get your head out of the clouds.
Okay, fair criticism there, John. But the reality is that voters this time are paying attention. I mean, the reality is people are looking past the show, past the personalities, and looking to say, what kind of policies are you going to implement? What kind of bills are you going to veto? What kind of budgets are you going to be proposing? And I think that on all of those issues, Scott McGinnis presents, and the Republicans across the board, present a very clear contrast. You know, are our candidates perfect? No, absolutely not. Are they're subject to weaknesses and failings and major mistakes, perhaps? But the reality is I think people are also looking for an understanding of the policies that they're going to advocate, not just on personality. And on the policies, there's a very dramatic contrast between Scott McGinnis, or whoever the Republican Party's nominee is, and the mayor of Denver.
And on that, I would agree. I do think you might be wrong on that one, Mr. Einstein. Because if there was a year where policy difference did matter, it would be this year. It can't just be a personality contest this year.
Voters
are angry. They got really hooked on the idea of the budget, on the size of the deficit, and I know that's a national issue, but we have a real budget problem here in Colorado as well. How are we going to start supporting a government that we can afford is going to be a central question. And you're not going to have to be the prettiest or smartest guy in the room. You're just going to have to know how to answer those kinds of questions.
Let's talk about press. And this is something you can weigh in very well on. The press right now is thin. And what I mean that is, we don't have investigative reporters. We don't have beat journalists the way we used to. We don't have guys that sit there and study an issue. So we're not getting the same depth. When it comes to McGinnis, this was an easy get. This was not.
No. Let me jump in, because it may have taken a while for the water story to break. I would have liked it if it broke a little faster. That would be one criticism I could have with my paper, but. Karen Crummy did really good work on that.
Agreed, she did.
She, from months out, she asked for the IRS forms or the tax report, or the tax returns. She got that information to the extent that she could, and then she started doing the hard gumshoe work of the reporters, investigative reporters are supposed to do. And it was because of that reporting that it popped out that the Hassans had given so much money to Scott McGinnis, and so that raises the question, well, what for? She did what she could to get her hands on those documents, started showing it to water law experts, trying to figure out where this came from in terms of intellectually. Was it sound writing? And stumbled onto the plagiarism scandal. And I know others were also on the hunt, so it might have been out there, but it would not have been if it hadn't been for Karen Crummy's work.
Karen did a good job with respect to that, and she did a good job on the Stephanie Villafuertes case and things like that. But it's a problem when you've got a one newspaper town and when you've got pretty thin reporting on other aspects of it.
And what I'm talking about specifically is Hickenlooper. You know, Hickenlooper is going into a bomb shelter right now, and that's all he needs to do is smile and shake, kiss a few babies, shake a few hands, or shake a few babies and kiss a few hands.
There too, Karen Crummy asked for his returns, and while he gave substantially the information she asked for, he didn't reveal the identity of his donors.
Right,
and that's an interesting situation, and you would think that that's going to be exposed or gotten into at some point.
Not only that, but he hasn't showed where his charitable contributions have gone. We've seen that he's given money,
correct.
But I'd be very curious to find out where exactly he's been giving his charitable donations. I think it would tell me a lot about where he is politically and why we're upset that McGinnis hasn't given us all of his tax documents. I don't see the same outrage when it comes to the mayor. The same thing when it comes to the Lodo beatings. There's a big question about what he knew and when he knew it, and did he do a little prep work before he went on one of the radio stations, and did he know what he knew when he said, I didn't know anything? But I'm not seeing that in as much intensity.
The coverage with respect to not only the racist and racist gangs and things like that, and Lodo beatings. You've got the issues with respect to just his own policy advocacy. This is a radical environmentalist hanging around with people like Van Jones, who he thinks apparently is a rock star, and all this kind of stuff. That is not being covered by the Denver Post or most of the media.
Well, a couple things. I'm going to steal the joke that David Harsanyi likes to make, and say the Lodo beatings are particularly egregious because the victims were middle-aged white guys. So I think that definitely is a worthwhile thing to hit the mayor on. He's not in a primary, so it makes sense for our reporters, and we do have a smaller staff than we used to. it makes sense for political reporters to be focused on the primaries to help primary voters make up their minds before August 10th. But after that, I mean, there's still plenty of time for investigative journalism and more traditional types of coverage.
If Tancredo, let's put on the what if game. If Tancredo didn't run here, and it was just Hickenlooper and now this McGinnis with the plagiarism charges and all the other good stuff, you're telling me that McGinnis still has a shot. You think that
I think his shot is a good shot.
What is the dirt that's going to come out on Hickenlooper?
Well, we've talked about some of it. We've talked about it in the context of his, management ability with respect to the mayor's office, and those are just a few things. Environmental issues, the way that he's not paid attention to issues involving Denver public schools and other things that really matter to voters. And they're saying, are we going to trust this guy with the chief executive role in the state? If
But is there something good? I'm talking something good. Do we have him with a live boy or a dead hook, or do we have something good?
If I could jump in real quick on the environmental issue, I know the Van Jones thing is fun to talk about, but I've argued before in a blog post, and I've argued with other people about this. What has the mayor done as a mayor that is extreme or radical in terms of the environment? There are no business policies that are restrictive. There's nothing.
Let's see, he gave us fast tracks, did that. He jumped out of an airplane for C&D, which has now put us into a huge budget situation. He's put us into debt with A through I or whatever, ran around like a Sesame Street character with the letters.
I'm talking about on environmental stuff.
Trust me, fast tracks is an environmental crime.
I happen to agree with you on fast tracks. But a lot of the things that he's done as mayor have been seen as pro-business and not restrictive in any kind of way. I mean,
I think when you strip back the veneer and you look at the kinds of things that he's been talking about, the policies he's advocating for, his trip to Copenhagen and the climate conferences and things like that, he's saying, one story over there and then in a different one, trying to appeal to the business community back home, that is going to come out in the course of the general election. And that's why I think it is supremely premature to say that the nail is in the coffin on the Republican Party in Colorado. I just don't think that's the case.
The idea that the mayor of Denver, who is here playing kissy face with the Democratic nominee Barack Obama, has a shot of becoming governor is mind-boggling. Again, it gets back to that wonderful political axiom I've heard about. All right, now let's put in the wild card. Now that Tancredo is in, and I don't see Tancredo getting out, I don't see McGinnis getting out, barring some big circumstance. And so I would have to see three people do something. I'd have to see McGinnis say, "You're right, I'm going to step out for the best of the movement." Tancredo do the same thing, and then you're going to need somebody with name recognition, with gravitas, who can do fundraising very quickly because he's $2 million behind starting now. The only guys that come to mind are somebody like Hank Brown, former United States Senator, who's remarkably well respected. Maybe Bill Armstrong, but I don't see him doing that. Maybe Bill Owens, but I think that's part of his past, and he's not going to go back there. I don't see any other way out of this. Do you guys?
Well, in fairness, you have to look at our party as a whole, and I think those are fair criticisms, John, because I would say that as a party, we have not done a very good job of helping build the bench, of helping support good local candidates to be able to give Republican voters and the voters of Colorado good choices, good options. I think this year is different in that. And Chuck, you had a great article a great column just a couple of days ago on the 23rd.
You are such a kiss-up. You know
it was a good article.
Awful.
You didn't read it because you don't read, John.
If I read, it wouldn't have been a good article. I know this.
I know. But it was a good article because it was talking about what are the new fresh faces of the GOP. And you were looking at good candidates in Denver, like Mike Fallon, Dr. Fallon, with respect to his race for Congress. I mean, as the chairman of the Denver Republican Party, we've got terrific candidates running. And I know it's in Denver.
And a whole history of great successes in Denver County.
Come on now, be fair. But see, some of these folks are new to the process, but terrific, a Hispanic woman by the name of Pauline Olvera, who's out there walking neighborhoods in Montbello and other places.
She's a streetwalker?
No, she is walking neighborhoods, talking to voters, making the case, and she's getting a very warm reception.
Actually, she's an incredible lady, but the demographics of that district are tough.
That's right. Christine Maston, Danny Stroud, House District 1 and 3. We can talk about some of the specific good candidates that are running, and I'm more familiar with the ones in Denver, obviously, but across the state, we've got that. But our party needs to help support them.
You're sounding like a good political hack there.
That's my
Come
job.
on, but here's the reality.